The first reading today is the story of what is usually referred to as the conversion of St. Paul, or really the conversion of Saul as he was first named. You probably remember the story. Saul was a major persecutor of Christians, but one day on a road to Damascus, he encountered the risen Christ who asked Saul why he was persecuting him. Saul was left blinded, unable to eat for days, and had to wait for a Christian named Ananias to come and heal him. I would bet that many of us at one time or another have imagined how great it must be to have some direct encounter with Jesus through a mystical vision or locution. We might think it would pretty much solidify our faith, maybe even make our faith lives so much easier. When you look at the stories of people who say they've had such experiences, though, a very different picture emerges. Paul, after all, was left blinded in the immediate aftermath, and Jesus wasted no time in letting him know how much he would have to suffer in his future. What I most note about this story, though, is what the risen Jesus doesn't do in the aftermath of the story. He doesn't bring back Paul's sight through some similar encounter. He doesn't continue speaking to Paul directly, teaching him all he needs to know through some miraculous presence in a blinding light. What he does do is send Paul off to be cared for by the Christian community. What he does do is send Ananias and other very ordinary Christians to care for him, to teach him all he would need to learn about Jesus and living a Christian life. It's as though Jesus found a way, a rather extreme way maybe, to get Paul's attention, but the reason for it was to draw him into community, to place his continued instruction and conversion and care in the hands of others. We can be tempted to imagine or wish for or pray for some shocking mystical encounter with Jesus as we imagine Paul had. But in a way that disregards the very first words that Jesus spoke to Paul. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Of course, Saul didn't understand himself as persecuting Jesus, but as going after Christians. What he had not yet learned is that Jesus is present in his followers. He had not yet learned that we who follow the way of Jesus are the body of the risen Christ in this world. And every time we allow ourselves to be drawn further into the community, every time we allow ourselves to be taught and cared for, and yes, even converted by others, we're being taught and cared for and converted by the risen Jesus himself, just as surely as if he had knocked us off our horses and blinded us. And sometimes, to be honest, getting knocked off my horse by one of my Christian sisters or brothers is what I need much more than a mystical vision. Have a good weekend.